Awesome. We're very excited about Databricks apps. Best way to connect to the data that you already have in Databricks, and it's a great way to democratize access inside of your organization, right? You don't need to give people access to all of Databricks. It's just, you give them just the app, and then you have the authentication, you have the lineage, and all of the integrations just work out of the box. Okay, so as I mentioned, there are 3 pillars to the future of all data intelligence applications that people will build. We've been a lot focused on the database layer so far, what we call the lake base, and then we talked about how you can actually build your own apps on top of that, because now you have your Postgres instance. So now we're going to shift gears to AI for the rest of the day during the keynotes. And as part of that, I want to welcome and talk to Dario Amodei, who's actually joining in from a friend's wedding. So super excited to have him on. I hope the video link works. Dario?
Thanks for having me, Ali.
So this is awesome. We were talking about doing this conference, and you were going to come here, and then and then there was a wedding. I hope your friend doesn't know that you're doing this right now. He'll be very upset, I'm sure. So super excited about the partnership. You told me that you've seen this kind of hockey stick adoption of Anthropic whenever you've launched it, and you said we're going to see the same. And I was a little bit skeptical. I was like, I'm not sure. It's actually, is it really going to take off like that? And again, you're 100% right. I was wrong again, and it's amazing to see. So I'm curious, from all the use cases that we're seeing with enterprises using Anthropic together with Databricks, which ones are exciting to you, and which ones kind of have maybe surprised you?
Yeah, so maybe one that stands out to me is Block, the company formerly known as Square. Block made an internal AI coding agent that they call Goose. And as often happens with when people use our models for coding, this is a pattern we've seen. At first people directly use the model for coding, and it received a lot of adoption there, something like 75% of Block's engineers. But gradually it became a general tool for coordinating lots of different types of tool use, lots of different data sources. Models that write code can write code for the user, but they can also write code in order to use tools and take actions. And so Block's usage really expanded beyond the narrow coding use cases to many things that the models can do with coding. And it's my understanding that Goose has become incredibly popular within Block, and they feel that it's greatly increasing their productivity. I think something like 40% of not just their engineers, but of all the employees at the company are now using it. So that's really a success story. We're excited to get the productivity gains and for it to continue to grow. And I think it's also an example of something you've been talking about for this whole summit, which is the AI models are great alone, but the best thing is when you can combine the AI models with the data sources, with various tools and affordances, where you can use the AI model as a brain that connects to various types of static information that you have in various dynamic frameworks. So I think that kind of illustrates the thesis of our collaboration.
That's awesome. Yeah, super excited about Goose, actually. I used it personally. Your models are really good at coding, I have to say, and all of Databricks engineering, actually. So we have over 2,000 people that now leverage Goose. It's one of our go-to platforms for agentic coding. So I'm curious, Darius, you talked a lot about virtual collaborators are going to become common, and we're going to have these agents working side by side us, maybe doing multi-hour work. I'm very curious, that world, what will it look like? And also, how do we make sure that they're doing the right work? How do we evaluate them? And how do we make sure that they don't do something that would violate security or privacy? So how do we really govern them?
Yeah, let's take those questions one by one. So I think first on what it looks like, I guess we can talk in terms of coding and more generally. I think coding is moving the fastest. It's where we're seeing things first, but I think it's a little bit of a foreshadow of what's going to happen across all applications. So within coding, the thing I always refer people to is this post by Steve Yege called "The Revenge of the Junior Developer," and I can't lay it out better than he has. His picture is, we started with coding, and first people just wrote code. Then there was the autocomplete era. Now we're moving to what Andrej Karpathy has called vibe coding. That has come to be associated with coding models and Claude in particular, which is where you kind of ask the model to do something and it's very interactive. I think then we're going to move to what Yege calls agent fleets, which is where you dispatch a number of agents to do things for you, and you act as essentially the manager of the agents. And then it'll go from agent fleets to agent swarms, which is when each agent in the fleet itself deploys something. And so the human engineer is sitting atop a hierarchy. It's like they're managing an organization or a company, and they still need to intervene. They still need to set direction, but it's a much more leveraged thing. So in terms of governance, I mean, you can imagine if you have all these agents running around, whether they're doing coding or whether they're doing something much more broad than coding, which we expect with, the kind of virtual collaborator agents that we expect to build, that we expect to operate within enterprises, making sure that the agents don't, vent private information to the internet. They don't take random actions that, would give your security team a heart attack. These are very important, but I think fortunately, in many ways, I wouldn't call these solved problems, but these are problems we've been addressing for a long time, right? Collectively as a community, we have this idea of, privileges and permission. We have this idea of, security requirements and security boundaries. And you at Databricks, this has been very, very central for you, governing the permissions and the safety of the model. So our thinking is that we can slot our agents into it, that all the things we've developed for data governance and governance of processes for humans, we can in a way sort of treat the agents the way we would treat humans. And in other words, make the agents more powerful, but also give them assurances. And so again, this is an example of how we can kind of put these two things together and make something that's much greater than we could make with either component alone.
Yeah, I love that. And that was a focus from day one when we started talking, security, governance, how do we actually make that sure that that's working as we launch Claude to, all of our customers just seamlessly in the platform. So at Databricks, one thing we're really excited about is helping AI reason on the proprietary data that these organizations have, basically domain-specific intelligence, or we call it data intelligence. I'm curious, what are you seeing enterprises do with data intelligence, and, what's it going to look like going forward?
Yeah, so I think this is an area that's accelerating quickly, that's really resonating. I mean, the ability to use data that's specific to an enterprise, it drives everything from an enterprise's desire for fine tuning to, enterprises see it, I think, correctly as, a source of unique and competitive advantage. So I've seen maybe three general patterns or general directions. One is, enterprises and many enterprises will go to multiple of these use cases that want to make use of kind of the basic knowledge within their enterprise. So, they want an agent that knows every piece of context about the business and can help teammates quickly find it. So, this is the thing that would have formerly been described as RAG, but I think it's gone beyond that, and there are many ways to do it, and we're excited to work with Databricks on it. There's a second bucket I would call maybe automation of processes. So, this would be anything from, kind of classical RPA type tasks to just automating any kind of process that's repetitive that happens within the organization. And here we want to make agents that kind of deeply understand business operations, while again handling the self-governance, making sure they don't go off the rails and are able to keep humans in the loop. And again, Claude models are good at this. Claude models specialize in that, and the framework we can build around it with Databricks is also helpful. The kind of creativity, research, and analysis, whether that's doing financial analysis or writing code or putting together a bunch of information into some kind of report, agents that act autonomously. This is what we were talking about in the last section, and are kind of able to, improve the business, improve the quality of code, help with a new product release, a new marketing strategy. So, I think we're increasingly leveraging these in all the different areas, including to improve our own internal productivity. And we've noticed substantial improvements in our own internal productivity due to all three of these use cases for Claude. I mean, I think it's always good advice that if you yourself are not deriving benefit from something, you probably shouldn't be selling it to others. So we are indeed deriving benefit in this case.
That's awesome. Yep, you should dog food your own stuff. We do that every day. That's super awesome. So yeah, you mentioned Claude many, many times. So you finally bumped the major version. And we now have Opus 4, we have Sonnet 4. Models are amazing, especially at coding, but also, writing, reasoning. Can you tell us a little bit about these? Tell us what's happening behind the scenes and, what you guys did to make these models.
Yeah, so as always, I mean, it's a mixture of, data, more compute, new training techniques, new environments to train the models on, new algorithmic ideas. It's never one thing. It's always a mix of a variety of things. But, I think a few things we're excited about. One is we're excited to have an Opus model again. We haven't had an Opus model for a while. They take longer. They're bigger. They take longer to train. Even I think beyond what's reflected in the benchmarks, Opus can do things that no other model, Anthropic or otherwise, is able to do, particularly in the coding domain. But beyond that, and I think Sonnet has been able to capture quite a lot of that power while still being at the kind of affordable price and speed. I think one thing I'm particularly excited about is the previous models had a little bit of a tendency to be over eager, to reward hack. It was hard to get the balance right between the models doing what you told them to do and the models being over eager and doing more than you would expect them to do. So just the fine sculpting of the models, following instructions, following human intent across coding, tool use, various other applications like customer service. That's something that, it takes a lot of iteration to get it right. And we're still not perfect, but I think we've improved the process quite substantially in Opus.
Awesome. Okay, my last question. There's so much happening in the AI space, it's hard to keep up. There's innovations coming all the time. I'm curious, is there anything that you've seen recently that you're excited about and that in particular is going to impact enterprises? And how should they prepare for that?
Yeah, so I would say the virtual collaborator, the virtual coworker. This is something that we're working on, are gradually introducing the pieces of. I don't think there's any one place where there'll be one big release, but we're building the pieces of something that can use all the interfaces that a human can when interacting with a computer and behave in many ways like a human a worker that can be deployed as an assistant by humans. So I think again, as with many things, probably code will be the leading edge of it, and we'll have these agent fleets that we describe. But I think it'll go beyond that. I think that, we've been working on computer use for a while. I think computer use is an area that's going to advance. And again, in collaboration with Ali and Databricks, I think we're going to be thinking very hard about the affordances that the models have, the sources of data they can access and the permissions around those sources of data, the tools they can use to connect to everything else on the cloud. I think that'll be an important part of providing the models context, just as humans can be very smart, but their ability to log into their machines and install and use various tools. In many ways, you're crippled without that. So I'm very excited for that general direction.
That's awesome. Yeah, super excited about that as well. Looking forward to many, many more years of partnership. Dario, thanks for calling in. I'll let you get back to the wedding. Let's give it a round of applause for Dario. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.